My name is Khawar Qureshi. I'm a Queen's Counsel based in London with an office also in the Middle East. I've been in practice as a lawyer for 13 years and I specialize in major commercial international disputes involving states and investors.
One of the things that concerns many African citizens is about how sometimes their respective countries loses cases against major energy or oil companies. What is the major challenge that African faces as far as the issue of losing court cases are concerned?
Michael, that's a very important question. In my 30 years of experience as a lawyer, I've done hundreds of cases. I've acted for and against governments including many African countries. In the past 12 months, I've acted for, represented Kenya, Botswana. I've just done a case involving Ghana. And the fundamental lessons are following. There are two essentially. When you enter into a contract, you must ensure that you undertake your due diligence. The contract has to be reviewed and drafted with expertise. And when a dispute arises, you must make sure that it's handled by professionals. Of course, it's extremely important for the state to develop capacity, internal capacity, and my practice in 30 years, I make it a point of principle to ensure that when I work for a government, I help to capacity build by doing training for the government and government lawyers.
So, from your perspective, you think African countries are not doing well in terms of building capacity of the officers who are supposed to defend the country when it comes to cases involving oil contracts?
I would say to you that every country can do better. No country's system is perfect and no country's lawyers are at the top in terms of expertise. It's the nature of the market that we all have to learn. And Africa is now full of potential for foreign investors. It's had that potential for decades, but it's realizing it now finally. To achieve the potential properly, Africa needs to make sure that it has access to the best legal advice domestically and internationally. And that includes capacity building, doing much more to capacity building.
Some hold a view that politicians deliberately conspire with companies to rob their respective country. Therefore, when there is a case involving, let's say, a particular country and an oil exploration company, they don't have the best legal team to go and defend the country. You have been involved in this case issue for 30 years. Do you agree with such concerns?
I can't prove or disprove what you've just said. What I can tell you is that if a country loses a case and is exposed to hundreds of millions of dollars of liability, it's the ordinary people who suffer. And it's important for the leadership to try and prevent that from happening. And the steps that can be taken are very simple steps. Make sure you enter into a contract after proper review and due diligence. If a dispute is about to occur, make sure you have the best legal advice available to you. These are very, very simple steps. If a contract is entered into in circumstances where due diligence hasn't been done, where the contract hasn't been reviewed, well then, unfortunately, trouble is inevitable. And if a proper legal team isn't instructed, I have done cases involving billions of dollars of claims, and I can tell you that ultimately an effective team makes all the difference when it comes to a case. Even if you have a strong case on the merits, if your lawyers can't put it across, then how will the arbitrators or the judges decide? The criticism that you've raised, it might be just, but the suffering of the ordinary people is something that has to be addressed, and the resources that are available to these countries have to be used.
Which case do you think you did your best, or for that matter, the country could have done better to win?
My responsibility for all my clients, whether I'm acting for a foreign investor, whether I'm acting for a state, which at this moment I'm acting for states that I was against. And that's the nature of my practice, and it makes it better for me so long as there's no conflict of interest. My responsibility for every client is to do my very best, whichever client it is. And it's often the case that unfortunately after a case you see where a state could have done better or a client could have done better, and I hope lessons will be learned. There have been some very high-profile cases recently involving African states where comments have been made in the press. In fact, cases involving other states as well, where billions of dollars have been lost. And I hope that the leadership will learn lessons and improve for the future.
You have handled a case involving an oil company or energy company in Ghana. What would be your advice to my country as far as handling contracts, energy contracts or petroleum contracts are concerned?
I can't obviously discuss what's not in the public domain, and I'm not at liberty to comment on a particular case. However, what I would say is this, that Ghana, like many African countries, has huge potential which is now being unlocked. And I come back to the 2 points that I made at the outset. Due diligence, ensure the contract is on the most competitive, favorable terms from the state's perspective and the investor's perspective. And if something goes wrong, access effective, professional, expert advice as soon as possible.
At this African Oil Week conference, what do you think both national oil companies or the states and the oil companies must take home?
Must do, sorry?
Must learn and take home, or back to their respective countries.
This is a excellent gathering, Africa Oil Week in Dubai, after the pandemic, and it shows you there are 1,400 delegates, how much interest there is in this sector. I am chairing a session on Wednesday to explain what Africa can learn from the Middle East experience, because I've done a lot of cases, not just Africa, Middle East, South America, Central Asia, for states against states. What can the delegates learn? They can try and understand what does it mean to develop best practices, learn from the experience of others who have also made mistakes but improved their practices. That would be my message.